Okay, so we're going to talk about chapter 1, and I'm going to start by showing you how to actually get to the PowerPoint. You'll want to follow along with that. Of course, it's going to be on the screen here, so you'll be able to see that when you watch the video. But if you want to come back to it, build your notes, prep for your tests, things of that nature. So I'm going to share the screen with you right now, and I'm just going to start by showing you what Blackboard looks like when you come into it. So we're here. You're going to go to what's called Student Resources. And you're going to notice that things are organized by chapters. Sometimes you're going to have things that are additional here, but you'll have the link to the textbook. You'll have the PowerPoint. And again, this is if you have Office. So this is the actual PowerPoint. But if you don't, you'll be able to use the PDF version. And I'm going to go ahead and use that. And we'll use that for our purposes here today. I may, in future lectures, use the PowerPoint version rather than the PDF just because it'll be a little cleaner to go from slide to slide. But I just want you to kind of experience what you'll experience in the Blackboard environment today. It's just PDF panels that are, you just scroll down, right? So this is managing the transition to college. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep these punchy, try to keep these about 15 minutes. If you have more questions, obviously, we can take those to the discussion boards. We'll have discussion boards for each of the individual chapters to delve a little bit more into the issues that come about. Okay, so objectives are real quick. These are things that we're going to hit within the lecture. So identifying the risks and rewards of college, describing the responsibilities of college student life, how they differ from high school or early career life. That's going to be important. And then differences in class delivery and strategies for success in each type. So again, we're obviously in an environment right now where we're mostly, if not entirely, doing online classes. That hopefully will change as we're able to hopefully defeat COVID and be able to resume normal life. But again, we'll talk about the different kinds of classes under those circumstances. And then just finally, some students that you might identify with or meet within a diverse environment. Okay, so these two first graphs that we're going to look at will show kind of a big reason for going to college. And it has to do, obviously, with the workplace and making yourself more versatile, more learned, more skilled, and available to take on a wider spectrum of jobs, right? So more college equals a higher average income, right? So again, if we get into high school graduate, and these are 2006 dollars, and they're also, again, there's a big discrepancy here, as you'll see in some of the areas between what men are paid and what women are paid. I think that's narrowing. We still have a gender gap, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't think that's good for us as a society, but it is part of society still. But what you're going to notice here, obviously, is this kind of upward swing, right? Once you get into having some college, having an associate degree, having a bachelor's degree, there's a really big tier there. And then obviously with a master's degree and with professional and doctorate degrees, depending on what it is that you're doing, right? So those are, again, that's a main thing to look at, and kind of knowing these ratios is an important thing. And then this one here, just showing that more college equals a lower employment rate. And in 2020 especially, I mean, if you have service jobs that are contingent on, say if you're working in a restaurant or you're working in a movie theater, obviously you've seen kind of the impact on jobs there, right? So if you don't have places where people are able to safely congregate, then those jobs might go away. Whereas if you do something that is maybe more in the tech industry or something like that, where you can work and critically think and use a computer, those jobs have been safer, right? So again, looking at this here, and again, a lot of this too just has to do with, and we'll talk about this a little bit along the way, but this kind of idea of soft skills, which we're going to talk about. So critical thinking, time management, being able to work with others, those sorts of things, those actually get built in college, right? So part of what employers value in college is not just, oh, you're getting more information, you're getting more learned, you're getting more knowledge, you're taking more classes in a certain field, but also you're getting the skills that allow you to succeed in the workplace because you have demonstrated that you're succeeding in college with those. Okay. So again, there are going to be some risks involved with college. Obviously, if you are doing student loans, especially, college debt can be long-term, right? And there's a financial cost of college. I mean, you do have to invest money in order to do that. And again, this kind of idea of delayed income, right? So we saw in those charts before, yeah, you're more employable and you can make more money as a college graduate, but you need time, obviously, to build towards that, right? When you enter college, there's minimally, I would say you could probably, 3.5 years if you are really grinding, get a college degree, but more likely it's, 4 or 5. And if you're having to do it part-time, it could be a little bit longer. So you have to factor that in. And then just again, the balance of the work, school, and personal life as well, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit more in time management, but certainly, you have a limited number of hours per week and a more limited number of waking hours. So school obviously will be a time investment as well as something where you are delaying the money that you were able to make, right? Okay, so student responsibilities. I'm not going to hit all of these, but I want to touch on a few that I think are really important. So upholding the values of honesty and academic integrity. I mean, that's important for you, obviously, as trying to be an ethical, moral, good person, but it's also, incumbent on professors to, enforce things like plagiarism and cheating and making sure that you're not doing those sorts of things to uphold the academic reputation of the school, right? So, you are, when you're coming to ACC, not only coming as a student and getting an education, but you're also participating in an academic community that has a certain level of standards ethically and in terms of academic integrity that it wants to uphold, right? So let's see. So on time and prepared for all classes is not the same thing online as it is in a live class setting, but certainly participation is something that the instructors will notice, right? And again, as you're being a student, you're building a relationship with your professors for however long the class is, right? Which is why etiquette and communications is a really important thing. If you treat this like kind of a customer service type thing where the professor is just serving you, then that might not come off the right way to the professor, right? So, and if you need help on some things later on, if you need a recommendation after you take the class, the better kind of relationship that you can build and the more kind of respectful and professional and personable you can be with your professors at the outset will that's generally a good investment to have. That's also being a good person. I definitely try to be above board and professional and cheerful as I can muster in all my communications. People who know me know that I can be a little bit of a grump sometimes, but I have a good heart and definitely like when students reach out. I mean, if you're reaching out to me, if you have questions, as long as they're framed, in a way that observes etiquette and is respectful, that shows me that you're invested in the class, that shows that you're wanting to learn, that shows that you're wanting to improve, and you're looking for me in my role as an instructor to help you with that. And that's awesome. That's totally what I want. Let's see. So taking full advantage of college resources available to you. That's another important thing. And again, ACC has a lot of non-traditional students, right? So again, there's diversity in income, diversity in ethnicity, but also this kind of idea of people who might be, having more kind of work-life balance challenges that happen, right? And so ACC is invested in everybody succeeding who comes to it. So there's a lot of resources that ACC provides that you might not even see, for example, at a four-year university, just because of who's coming and what their life situations are when they're coming here, right? So again, all things to, all of this is important, but I wanted to hit those high points there. Okay, so if you are coming from high school in particular, this is for you, but this is a good thing to keep in mind in terms of kind of where we're set and how we interact, right? So basically, the college is about choosing responsibly, right? So you're not forced to, I mean, we take attendance, we have attendance policies, but we don't have kind of the same level of intervention that we would have in college that you would experience in high school. And a lot of that has to do with, again, this kind of idea of college professors and what they are supposed to do versus high school teachers, right? So high school teachers have pressure to pass students based on their department heads, their principals, their superintendents. Funding can get tied to graduation rates. So they're really, really invested in making sure that students pass, and they will do a lot more intervention than college professors. I mean, we still have some thresholds that we're supposed to hit, but it's already kind of built in and known in college that students don't necessarily maybe, again, if they're not invested, then they may not succeed. And there's a tolerance of kind of a certain level of students dropping out that happen there. So the bottom line is that, I mean, you certainly will have professors articulating what you're supposed to do well in a class, but they might not be on top of you as much as high school teachers might be. So again, this is incumbent on y'all to advocate for yourselves and make sure that you are doing what you need to do to succeed. Okay, so types of courses. Lectures, what I want to kind of hit on most here. Labs, I mean, obviously in science, kind of learn by doing. Seeing experiments in real time, those are all things that are real important. But lectures in particular are going to be key, right? So again, this kind of idea of getting information from your professors. I try to keep these lecturette videos short, but at the same time, I think it helps, especially if you're an auditory learner, to hear somebody talking and explaining. And sometimes reading it and then hearing it explained and interpreted by a professor can bring different perspective that will be helpful. Okay. And then other course delivery formats. Here, independent study. I mean, again, if you are working in an advanced setting, it's good to know that you can indeed do work on your own, right? And that can be really helpful. Okay. So the types of courses, I mean, obviously almost nothing is entirely face-to-face anymore. I would say that even live classes that you will have in the future, especially given what we've learned, what we've experienced, what we've done in 2020, will be web enhanced, right? That, you know, for example, for ACC, it uses Blackboard. You will have some things that are on Blackboard that are particularly helpful in that, right? So, and then on the other side of that, obviously, is online, right? So synchronous or asynchronous. Synchronous means you go still at a designated time each week, but you're doing it on your computers. Asynchronous is what we've got here, right? So you have a certain amount of things that you have to do per week. As a professor, I put materials up that you can review, and you do those when you can, right? So, and then web, yeah, we talked about web enhanced. And then hybrid is by design, you go certain number of hours per week, less than you would in a live class setting. And then there is an expectation that you will do other things online as well. Okay. And then there's 3 types of courses. Again, this will be good for test purposes. So core course, everybody's got to take it, right? So when I went to the University of Washington, when I did my undergraduate, we had a certain number of math classes, basic English classes, foreign language classes that we had to take in order to be able to get a degree, right? So those are considered core courses. And then I was a journalism major, so courses required in your major in order to be able to do that. So there were some various journalism classes that I took along the way. And then what's called elective courses, right? So basically you have a certain number of credit hours that you have to do in order to graduate. You have core course requirements, you have major requirements, and then there's some classes where you can pursue sort of whatever you want to, right? So, or if you're trying to find a major, you can delve into several different areas, see what you really like. Those ones that you don't pursue into a major, you know, are still electives. They still count towards your degree, but you know, again, that gives you an opportunity to sample some things, see what you really like, and then if you're not dead set about what you want to do when you enter college, you still have the opportunity and still built into the degree plan to be able to explore and then plunge forward with what you find that you really like. Okay, so in 2015, and this will be, again, another important thing for the test, a little over 20 million students attended American colleges and universities. That's 5 million more than in 2000. And that's important to know just because, again, this kind of idea, more people are going to school, it's becoming more and more essential in the workplace. It's also just kind of a good life experience type thing. I mean, certainly if you were coming directly from high school, I think it's an important rite of passage. I think it's an important place to learn and make mistakes and learn from mistakes and grow and have triumphs and learn from those triumphs. And again, almost half of all undergraduates are community college students, right? So, I mean, again, this is a very important facet of higher education now. Okay. And then just interesting, a little bit more females to males in college, more full than part-time. Nearly 4 out of 5 college students are working part-time, averaging 19 hours per week. And we'll talk about this a little bit later in the semester too, but again, this kind of idea that up to 20 hours a week, generally that's manageable. That can be even good. That can be more of kind of an indicator of success. But if you're working more than 20 hours a week, that can really kind of cut into your ability to function well as a student. And then international students making up about 4% of all university students. Okay, and then types of college students, again, this is just kind of important to note. Again, first generation, you might have heard this term. So this is, you are the first member of your family, parents, grandparents, to go to school, right? So we're seeing kind of more and more of that. Again, yeah, I think that's a good trend. I think it's obviously valuable for people to go to college in terms of what they learn. Again, we talked about this before, traditional, generally that's coming right out of high school. Non-traditional, maybe you've gone to college before, then you go to the workplace, or you worked, or you were in the military, and then a little bit later in life, or much later in life, you come back to school, right? So, you know, you'll definitely see that in community college as well, right? So maybe even more so than some four-year universities. All right, so your key takeaways are here. One point that I think is interesting here out of the summary is this idea of classes using technology to enhance the classroom experience, right? I mean, again, you are experiencing a classroom entirely online, but even still, if you are in a live class setting, there's certainly, I think, things that, especially in this age, where having something online, having something that you can review on your own time, having resources that you can access via the technological tools that you are well accustomed to by now, I think is a really good thing. Okay, so that concludes this. And so pretty soon I'll get something up on chapter 2 and subsequent chapters, because obviously we are going to move along at a pretty quick clip, right? Hope you enjoyed this. Hope this helped. Again, discussion boards will be up in case you have any questions. Thanks.